Good morning, everyone. My name is Jim Dawkins. As I said, I'm with LECOsoft for those that have just joined us. And today we're offering a webinar on really the optimization of the use of a project schedule as a communication tool. We'll talk about why that's really critical, why and what audiences to whom you might serve up those communications. How it's important to your business, and then we'll kind of go through some techniques in our Ask to Power project scheduling tool that might help you understand how quick and easy you could make use of it. So with that today, I'm joined today by my colleague, Megan DePody. Megan is our U.S. consultant. And we have consultants across the globe. Ask to Power project is used in countries all over the world. So we're certainly very happy to have Megan today. Megan's background is as a scheduler. For those of you that schedule as a full-time job, I know some of you are project managers, some of you might be superintendents, and so it's simply a part of your job. But Megan's was a principal scheduler at a subcontractor, worked with and also at a GC. So she's got some real life experience on exactly how this tool is used day to day. So today we will be talking about the scheduling tool as a communication device. But I want to set the groundwork real quickly to make sure everyone's aware of how broad the use is of Ask to Power project across the U.S. Just a handful of the companies that are using Ask to Power projects, some very large organizations, some very small. We've got subcontractors, GCs, government organizations using Ask to Power project. So the first question that comes to most people is, well, why? The second question I'll answer in a moment is, maybe I haven't heard of Ask to Power project. So Saunders is a well-respected large GC here in the Denver area where Megan and I are based. And for Saunders, it was all about being able to use Windows functionality, drag and drop functionality that was very straightforward, but that also accomplished all their goals. And that's critical. It's one thing to find a very easy to use scheduling tool, but one that can't grow with you and be a full CPM tool and handle cost and resource loading if you need it. Lots of people tell us that other tools are just too hard. They don't really make use of the Windows graphical interface. Encore Electric's another excellent example, a subcontractor, very large subcontractor, also here in the Denver area. And for Encore, it certainly was important for them that it was simple to use, but certainly as a subcontractor, they were very concerned about maintaining margins. And how do you get ahead of that? Well, last month we actually offered a webinar that was specifically targeted at subcontractors. And we can certainly make that available to all the attendees today as well. Just shoot me a quick email and I can give you a link to the recording for last month's webinar. And last month's webinar was all about getting ahead of the scheduling curve as a subcontractor. Many times subcontractors are the last to know about ramifications for delays and are forced into a bit of a box and have to crunch their schedule. And they may end up using more staff than normal. They may end up paying overtime to make up for challenges on a project that might have been avoided if we had some more advance notice. One of the last things I want to say before we jump into some software is that Ask to Power project is one that lives within this scheduling ecosystem. We can open Microsoft Project, Primavera, SureTrack, schedules. Natively, we just open them. It's not an import process. We can save as, and that's what you're seeing here on the screen, back to an XER file format. We can save out to a Microsoft Project format. So if the folks that you're working for, if you're a sub and the GC requires an XER, it's in the spec, or the owner requires an XER file or a project file, you can use Ask to Power Project and take advantage of all the functionality you'll see today, yet still deliver it in the format that they require. And it's not a whole convoluted import-export. We just save it right out. So why haven't you heard of the second question I thought that many people would ask, that I thought I would answer today? The LECOsoft is the company behind Ask to Power Project. It's out of the UK, but we've made some very significant inroads here in the US. This tool has been around as long as the dominant leaders in this market share. So this is not a new tool. People think of it as a new tool. It is not. Most of the contractors, and 92% is probably even more than most, almost all of the top UK construction contractors use them. You saw the list of some logos in the US of folks that are using Ask to Power Project. We have over 1,100 users in the US. There's a wide adoption across our 50 states, and worldwide that's 75,000 users. It's in 7 languages in 90 countries, used on some of the world's largest and most complicated projects. But probably what makes us a little bit different is LECOsoft is not a massive software company that sells a bunch of other software. So we sell construction software, and Ask to Power Project is our marquee product. And we improve the product by listening to what our contractors tell us they need. And that's really critical. Lastly, we've got 10 providers, solution providers across the US that are there to serve your needs. These are folks that are well skilled in scheduling, that understand your day-to-day challenges, that can modify templates and create reports if you need to, can provide you the training and the hand-holding to get you through when you're first adopting Ask to Power Project. So let's talk about today's topic. So we're going to talk about communicating, using the schedule as a communication tool, but it's just as important as all the other project controls. I can't tell you how many times we talk with contractors, and the schedule may be created up front, and as things get busy, it falls by the wayside and is not as important as some of these other tools. Why is that so important? We'll talk about that in just a second. But what does a good schedule communicate? Well, clearly it communicates what you plan to do. It communicates as you progress, what you've actually accomplished. It should communicate why there's a difference. The why is the question you'll be asked in those monthly meetings, if that's as frequently as you meet. And it should clearly communicate with a critical path, the changes in the final completion or ramifications on other projects. This is really critical because good communication prevents surprises. And surprises create disputes, which we all know are very expensive. So it's important to communicate early and often, and communicate the why. And you do that with a schedule. So many contractors fall into a bit of a lag trap, to use a scheduling term. And the challenge is that they don't provide the updates until required. I think a monthly meeting is terrific. I think it's often mandated. I can also tell you that more frequent communication is probably warranted if there's a change. Today, as we manage our webinar from Denver, Colorado, I'm looking outside and we've got a nice little snow coming in. And that snow is going to cause some delays somewhere. So it's important to communicate that as early as you know. And how can we do that quickly? If it's not easy enough to do it, then it's going to be a real challenge. So what I'd like to do now is to move beyond our slideshow to some software. So I'm going to hand off control to Megan. Megan, you should have control of the screen.
All right, can you guys see and hear me?
Sounds good.
Okay. So, as Jim said, we all know that good communication between everyone involved in a project increases the odds of that project being successful. I think it's also common knowledge that once everybody gets busy, a project gets going, everybody's in the trenches, that one of the first things to fall apart and fall off the wagon is our good communication practices that we've established. What we know we should be doing isn't necessarily always what happens. How often are you sitting in a trailer knowing that you need to send out your schedule updates or various reports? It's on your to-do list, but you keep getting phone calls. People are coming in from the job site with problems. You have probably more meetings than you have hours in the day. And by the time you know it, it's 8 o'clock that night and you still haven't gotten it done. It happens to the best of us. I want to show you today how we can do this efficiently and quickly so that it doesn't take away from time spent on all of your other job responsibilities. A couple things I want you to think about during the presentation today. How do you currently go about showing delays, potential delays, schedule risk, things like that to your owners? Are you currently doing this all in one file, or do you have various different files, scheduling software, management software, various different platforms that you have to use to do that? And how long does it take you to put together all of your documents and summaries that you need after every update that you do, whether those updates are weekly, bi-weekly, monthly? Do you end up having to spend a day or two putting all that together, or is it something you can do in an hour or two? So let's jump right into it. Quick overview of what we're looking at. Here on the right-hand side of the screen is pretty standard bar chart. There are a few things unique to ASTA that I'll point out as we move along, but it should look familiar to anybody who's looked at a schedule before. Here on the left side is, again, your standard spreadsheet information for the schedule. A couple Power Project specific things on the screen. Here on the far left side, we have what's called the project view. There's a lot of information here. I'm going to highlight a couple things. First of all, up here under Program is our project hierarchy, similar to the work breakdown structure. The one unique thing also about the way the Power Project works with the hierarchy is that rather than having to scroll from one area to the next, if I merely click on the heading, it will jump straight to that section and show me only the activities within that section, and I can easily jump back and show the whole project. On this side, we also have, and all of these are expandable, show all of our resources, our costs, our activity codes, which is our code libraries here, different calendars, our progress periods, which are data dates, breakdown structure. So there's a lot going on in this project view. It can be used for a lot of different things. Also unique to Power Project, up top here we have the ribbon, which to any Microsoft users looks familiar. It's similar to what you see in Word or Excel. Unique feature, though, with Power Project are these show and hide buttons. Without having to go through and reformat your bar chart, you can easily turn off and on different pieces of information. I can turn off and on my relationship lines. I can turn off and on, this shows my progress. So these dark bars show the different progress that happened during different progress periods. So you can see the progress up to this pink line here is my progress period, current progress period, also known as a data date. I can also turn off and on my critical path. In Power Project, critical path is activities outlined in red rather than most people are used to seeing a solid red bar. The benefit I see to that is that in Power Project, these bars can be color-coded to show just about any piece of information, right now it's showing contractors. So if we look here at our codes and our contractors, you can see each one has a different color and pattern assigned to it, and that's what these bars are. So it's a quick visual way to see what's going on, and the fact that it's on the critical path is still highlighted but doesn't hide that information. These bars can also be set to show areas of a building, risk level, just about anything, piece of information you can think of. You can also turn off and on resources that are assigned, your baseline. You can see my baseline showed up right underneath there. I can turn it off. So it's a very quick way to just pin in on what you want to look at. You don't have to set up different views every time you want to look at something a little bit differently. Okay, so let's jump into it. We've got right here a project schedule. We're a couple months into it. We started right the first of the year. Again, this is our most current update here. So we've updated through the end of April. We've planned ahead a little bit, apparently. We have several other data dates. You can see that we did updates here. Those updates were done monthly, so we have an update at the end of every month. So now I've updated my schedule. What's next? Well, usually my owner and my executives within my company want to see some basic summaries. They want to see where the schedule is, where we are within the schedule, any potential slippings, things like that. So the way I go about this, there are a couple ways. First thing I'll do is usually do a quick summary that shows our different areas. I can minimize all of these. I can also just do a plain, show to level and shrink to whatever level of the hierarchy I want to see. I can shrink my timescale to get it all on one screen and see where we're at. Again, I can also turn my baseline on so I can see where these areas are compared to where we were. I can see that between substructure and superstructure, we started slipping. So that can lead me to maybe expand this area and see where we started having problems. Okay, we were on time here. Starting with foundations, we started getting behind. Well, why is that? I actually just created some text annotations, and I can turn them off and on here with that, with the details. We'll get into that a little bit more later. But that's easy to do. One nice thing about Power Project is that it prints whatever is on your screen. You don't have to set up different print profiles or print views. So if I go to print, it's printing exactly what's on my screen. Substructure was expanded. I have my bar chart with my baseline showing. If I go in here and make any changes, look at something a little bit different, I again just have to file and print, and it's right there. So I don't need to do a bunch of saves and saves as and reformatting for every summary or version of the schedule that I want to print. Again, you can print to a PDF or whatever is what most people end up doing to send out. So I also want to show, again, typically my owner or my executives want to see what is on the critical path. That's similar to other scheduling tools. There's a critical task filter. You can turn it on. Take a look. There's my critical path. Goes through my structure and into my MEP. And I can see that my critical path is slipping. So again, it's nice to see this color coding with the subcontractor because it's a very quick, easy reference. I know I'm looking at my critical path, and without even paying attention to what my activities are, I can very quickly look and see that it's my concrete sub, my brick sub, my MEP sub are who's on the critical path. So those are the subs I really need to be talking to and focusing on when looking at how we can make up lost time on our schedule. So now that we've gotten our owners and executives taken care of, let's look at what we would send the subcontractors. Now, in general, I know a lot, and it's pretty common. A lot of people will send out the entire schedule to all the subs. And that's great because they have all of the information. It's important for them to know not only what work they're doing, but where the other trades are. The downside of that is as your schedule grows, it gets to 20 or 30 pages. I think we all know that the larger the file gets sent out, the less attention people pay to it. It tends to just get skimmed. They might look closely at the first page or two, and then their eyes start to gloss over, and they just kind of skim through it. But if you can send every subcontractor a schedule of their activities, it will help them better to see what's going on with their work, see where they maybe are slipping, close to slipping, and how they can help the job be successful. Saying that can be a lot of time. If you have 30 subcontractors on a job, that's not usually a very quick thing to do. It takes a lot of time. Not everybody has that time, so usually they just send the schedule out. Well, one nice thing about Power Project is that it does help make that go faster. There are a couple ways you can do that. Again, we can do filter by code. So I have this set up rather than have to create a new filter for every project, for every different subcontractor to be able to filter by that. I have a filter, I can set up a filter that asks me every time which code I want to filter by. So I can select this filter. I want to filter here by my mechanical, electrical, plumbing contractor, and there it is. Again, I can just go File, Print. It will print that. I can change. This time I want to look at my brick contractor. There it is. But I don't have to spend time at the beginning of the job setting up individual filters for each and every subcontractor. They're all there. As long as I have a code created for that contractor, then there's a filter automatically there ready for them. Another way I can do it is I can sort and group. I have one set up that sort and group by a contractor. Again, these sort and groups are set up within templates, so as long as I've started my project from a template that has all of these in it, then they are ready to go for me. I don't need to do it every time I start a project. I don't need to recreate these. In Power Project, templates are relatively quick to create. You can also, as Jim mentioned, work with your partners that they might already have some created for you that they could send you, or they would be able to help you create ones custom to your company. But here I have this group and sort set up by contractor. I also have it set, this black dotted line here is a page break. So I have it set so that each contractor will print on a separate page. So I can do it this way. I can either hand out or put in the meeting minutes every contractor's different schedule, but I also still send them this whole file. This allows them to just find the page that they're at, focus on their activities, but they can also still see what's going on before them, what their predecessors' activities, what the status of those is. So, my mechanical contractor can see where he's supposed to be for rough-in, but he can also go look and see what the status of the framing is, or what the plan for the framers are for various floors. So I find that to be very helpful, and it tends to get utilized more than just sending out one giant file that people have to filter through and find their information on their own. Another thing I need usually is my 3-week look ahead. So I have a 3-week look ahead set. There it is. This is set as today's date plus 3 weeks. So it's a rolling filter that will always be current. The other thing I like is that I can, again, along the lines of a filter that asks you every time, I can do a date range that I specify each time. Rather than having to, I needed my 3-week looks aheads for, my weekly subcontractor meetings, things like that. But every now and then I'm going to be looking at, I want to know what's happening in, before the end of the quarter. Or, I have maybe a milestone on July 15th, and I want to know what's between now and that milestone on July 15th. I don't want to have to create a new filter for every time I have a different date range that I want to filter my schedule down to. So by doing this, I can use the same filter every time and just specify my dates. I can come in here and pick specific start or finish dates. I can also utilize calculated dates. I can also use these dates and add or subtract from them. So I could say, if I want to look at this quarter, I could do my quarter start minus a week maybe, and for a finish date, my quarter end plus a week. So I could see what's happening in the quarter with a buffer on it. Things like that. Make it very flexible. And again, I don't have to create a whole new filter every time I want to look at a different time period. So now that we've gotten our basic summaries done, basic subcontractor information, what do we do when we have delays, changes, issues? How do we tell that story, explain our position, easily produce documents that compare and see what's changed? So we've got a couple things here. Again, in my format, I am showing my baseline. ASTA can have as many baselines as you want. There's no limit to the number that you can compare at one time. So I typically, and it's usually good practice, to baseline after every update. So these progress periods are my updates that I've done. They are also every baseline. Every one of these also has a baseline associated with that same date. Right now I have my baseline turned on here. I can also, using this drop down, pick which baselines are visible on my bar chart. So I can turn on, and you can see other bars showed up. They all have different colors, which you can set in your baseline manager. The earliest will always be closest to the task, so it's my contract baseline, and they will move to the most recent one that you're looking at will be the furthest down. Let's turn that off. It can get a little busy to have all those bars going on. So a lot of times, though, this tells me a little bit of a story. It shows that starting about here we started slipping, but what else is going on? Well, again, I can use views. I have a baseline comparison view. This way I don't have to go add and subtract columns every time I want to look at a different piece of information. I can have some views set up that at least get me started, if not showing everything I want to look at. So here we've got my baseline view. Right now it's showing all of these. A little cluttered. If I turn them off, these calculated columns are still calculating if I have them set to calculate from those other baselines that I've turned off. They're just not showing on the bar chart. It has nothing to do with what's being calculated. So you can still compare to it even if you don't necessarily want to have 5 different baselines showing on your bar chart. The calculations will still be done. You can still see the data from that. So I have columns in here for my different variances. Again, I have my annotations that I can turn off and on. Okay, this activity was delayed due to a storm, and as we can see, that storm then, the impacts of the storm carried on and pushed further activities behind. Not uncommon, in your initial earthwork for a site. So this is good information you can put, if you wanted to, columns for every single baseline you have. You can change these columns to calculate variance from between any of your baselines and your current project. So if you want to calculate from your contractual baseline, you can if you just want to highlight what has changed since my last update. You had maybe a storm, something like that, since your last update, you can change that and it will calculate from your last update to this one. So now we've got that going. Oh, I also wanted to mention when you open new views, they just open as separate tabs, so I can always just jump back and forth. I don't have to continually change views or add and subtract columns. I can have as many views open and tabs open as I want to. I can also do a side-by-side comparison of them. I can tile horizontally or vertically if I want to compare differences. So now that I've got my comparison, baseline comparison, highlighting what's wrong, I've got annotations in there or activities for my different delays, however it is that you note those. It's all in one location. Well, now how do I show the impact to production or to my costs? If you resource or cost load your schedule, it's very quick and easy. It's these histograms here. I've got one created that I just need to toggle off and on. So here I'm looking at my allocation, which is number of people for my brick person, my bricklayers. The green is the current update. Right now I have yellow set to what my previous update was. I could have a different data set being graphed for each and every update if I wanted to. I can also show multiple trades and see how they're affected. I can show them all in one. I can do separate for each trade, whatever makes the most sense for what you're trying to communicate. I can also, if I want to graph just current status, that's easy to do just to look at what my current resource requirements are. I can also graph costs. So there's my cumulative cost, total cost, and also this is only showing what I have selected here. So right now this graph is for the entire project. If I jump to one of these sections, it's just the section that's showing. So you can see it changes as I look at different areas. Jump back to the resources here. Another thing I can do, I can jump to this as a view, a separate tab that's full page. And again, it will print what I see on the screen. So if I jump here, it prints my histogram. I don't have to go through and do separate print profiles for my graphs and charts versus my schedule. Another thing you can do is turn that back on here. I can also send it to Excel. So if you have maybe company reports that you have to put your data into for progressing, we can do that. So it'll bring over your data set. Again, you have as many data sets as you want and a basic chart. You can then use this if you're more comfortable manipulating charts in Excel. You can utilize that. You can create pivot tables. Like I said, you can incorporate data from any of your other sources of information, whether it's your management software, if you're combining projects, looking at other projects, your production reports, things like that can all get brought together. Along those same lines, within ASTA, you can, sorry, lost my train of thought there. Within ASTA, you can copy and paste directly into and out of Excel. So if I have, say, maybe my actual hours spent on some kind of a production report, I can put in here actual effort, which is equivalent to man hours. I can bring a column from that in, and if I have that information in an Excel spreadsheet somewhere, I can copy that column straight from Excel, paste it here, and that data is there and immediately available on my histogram and on my graphs. Vice versa, if you have, like I said, a company-wide report that you have to produce for the executives in your company or for monthly status review meetings, things like that, you can copy and paste, copy right from a Power Project into Excel your existing reports that you have, and the data will be there. So what we've seen today here is that you can quickly and easily create summaries and updates that are easy to read for your project team. If you can do this quickly, I think it's pretty obvious that you can then save money on disputes. If everybody knows what's going on, right as as soon as you have the information, you can quickly and easily disseminate that to the rest of the team. I think the reason this doesn't happen right now is that it can be hard and cumbersome and take a lot of time. And as we all know, as jobs are going, we don't always have that time. So I think that Power Project is a very useful tool in making this happen quickly and easily. So that is what I have at the moment. Jim, do we have any questions?
So let me open it up for questions. So if you have a question, please submit it. I've got a few that popped in during the presentation, Megan. So there was one question about views, which for some folks may be something, maybe a new concept. It looked like you had multiple views for a single project. If I make a change in one of the views, am I making a change to just that view, or is that for the project? How does that work?
No, that it changes and it will carry over no matter what you're looking at. So if I have this project here, let me jump down to something that is happening here, and I can say this activity, my first slab, got drawn out. Well, reschedule, see how that affects me, and as soon as I jump over to, oh, that was my histogram. I thought that was my baseline. Let me open up my baseline view. If I jump over to that slab, I can see that activity has changed here.
Okay.
And again, if I were to change it here and shrink it back down, it has shrunk back down on this side too.
Okay. So you can have multiple views into a single project. They can show parts or filter to just some specific aspect of a project, part of the work breakdown structure. But in addition, can you have tabs for other projects? Can you look at more than one project in Ask to Power Project?
You can. You can have multiple projects open at the same time. Show you here. I got some of my recents. So I can easily open something else here and have it separate and jump back and forth. So if I'm comparing different projects, or if I have maybe a project file that was sent to me by, say, a subcontractor, and I want to incorporate it into mine, I can compare them side by side before I do that.
And then I can pull it into mine.
Exactly. You can copy and paste between the projects as well.
That brings up one other question that was asked as well, because you talked about copy and paste, and you talked about augmenting a project with some actual hours that may come in a spreadsheet. Can you use the copy and paste to create an initial schedule?
You can. So if you have an Excel file that has a list of activities and a durations, or a list of activities and expected dates, you can copy those rows and columns directly from Excel into here, and it will create activities for those. You would just then have to go add your logic to that. Unless you have a column that's predecessors and successors, then that would copy over as well.
Terrific. Let's see. There's a question about you're using these task summaries in your schedule rather extensively. Is that hard to create?
No. So if we want to, say we have within our substructure or superstructure here, if we want to group these maybe by area within that, it's just as easy as highlighting them and click Summarize. Then I can name it, and it showed up over here as well. So I can click on it and it will filter just by that as well. So it's very quick and easy to create. I can also, if I want to rearrange my hierarchy, I can just click and drag and it will rearrange it within that hierarchy. It says which line do I want to put it before. So you can reorganize the way you look at your schedule very easily.
Okay. I've got a lot of questions coming in. I will try to get through as many of these as we can. By the way, if we reach the end of our time here, I want to let everybody know if you submitted a question and we didn't get to it, because it's amazing how many we're having pop in. We will email you answers to your questions as well. So never fear, we'll get to all of those. There was a question about hiding cost features when sharing with other people. Is there a way to do that?
There is. So there's a couple different ways to do it. If you are sending the live schedule file, you can do it a couple different ways. You can what's called book out, which is kind of like checking out, and you can do just parts of your project. You can also do read and write only. You can tag specific things that you want to send out respectively. And then also if you're sending out just like PDFs, you obviously can just hide those columns if you've got them out and send them out that way.
Okay, terrific. There was a question about, can you show the activity name in the bar chart versus just the number, which is all about labels, right?
Yep, yeah. In formatting your bar chart, there are obviously lots of different options, but that's very easily on my display. I can select what I want to show either on the right side, the left side, or this task is text within the bar. So, show the name in there. Again, I can show something within the bar itself. So if I want to put, maybe the line number within it shows it on the activity. So you can adjust that as much as you want. There are lots of different options for what you can see on those bars.
Terrific. There's so there's some of these are label issues. Can you add sub-company names to trade codes? Because right here you just have trade codes, but you could certainly do, well, I'll let you answer the question.
Yep. So yeah, you can name these however you want. If you want them as a subcontractor, you can group them and have folders of contractor, various hierarchy levels within your codes, whatever makes the most sense for how you're doing it, but it's all completely, editable.
So there's a question that really that I'll take deals with our enterprise version of software. Today we're showing the standalone software, and there are different versions of our software. But there's a question about how many people can work in the schedule at the same time, which is what our enterprise software is designed to do. And you can certainly set user rights associated with those individuals. You can either, there's a number of things you can do. Some folks are used to a very traditional way of essentially booking in and out, as Megan was suggesting. That locks a whole portion of the project, and you then hand it off to them and they can make changes, send it back to you, and you can incorporate it. But our enterprise version allows concurrent use within the same project. And with that use, you're locking at the activity or task level. And you'll see that when you go to change a task or activity that it's locked. And you can't make changes to that if somebody else is currently making changes to it. So we do have an enterprise version that allows as many folks as you want. It is, every time I say that, I've got folks that are very excited and other folks who are horrified. So it does require some process controls. So you want to make sure that you have those in place, and our consultants are very helpful in structuring that process for you. So there's, let me move on here, and let me be mindful of the time. We try to end about 5 before. There's a very general question, Megan, I don't know, and we may want to follow up more with this in email, but there's a general question about how's the coding structure compare to P6, meaning codes, resources, calendars, all of those kind of things.
Yeah, it's very similar. You can, as I said, set them all up on a template. So most of our users have either standalone or concurrent. So within that, again, you have what I've done in the past is I'll set up like basic codes, like we said, that had like contractor, and just name them, drywall, painting, type of work. And then when I'm starting my project from this template, I might adjust that with the actual company names. But I've got at least the basics in there. For resources, I tended to have a company template that every project within my company would use and start with, and would have my company-specific resources that I use and costs that I use, so that everybody is using the same one, so that between the projects you can go back and forth and everything matches up and is similar to look at, and it's standard within the company. But same with calendars, you create them in your template so that everybody's working off the same calendars. You can also copy and paste these things from one project to another. If maybe you started with the wrong template, you can bring that information over to update a project if you need to as well.
Okay. Terrific. And so so what you're saying is those could be global, but I could also set up templates that are project specific?
Exactly.
Okay. And let me see. Can you track manpower in a project to track duration? Can you enter manpower?
Oh, yes. So when you are resource loading your schedule, you can change the way that the resource is modeled. So if I look at my properties from this shows the calculation. So right now it is using the man hours and the duration to calculate my number of people, but I can change that to my calculated parameter here. I can just change to duration. So I'm going to put my man hours and my number of people in there, and it will tell me how long that activity should be. I can also have it calculate my man hours from my duration of people. So any variation of those three activities, or those three items, can be calculated.
Okay. There was a question about, you showed an annotation for a delay for storm. Could you even include a picture or something like that?
You can, yep. So yeah, you can include objects or pictures, and you can tie it directly. I don't think I have any pictures right now on my machine to include, but it's a matter of if I want to include a picture. If I do this, it will attach it to that task, and then I just find my picture file, attach it. It will be there again. It'll turn off and on by clicking that button.
Okay, yeah, in terms of communicating delays, picture certainly replaces lots and lots of nodes. There's a question about how weekly schedules will include greater detail related to a given activity. Is there a way to add that weekly schedule breakdown in the CPM steps? So they're referring to the steps in P6. So the weekly schedule is generated from the CPM versus a standalone spreadsheet.
Yep. So what we have, rather than steps, that I actually think allows us to have a lot more flexibility. You can actually have more than one task on a line, which this schedule actually does. I just wasn't looking at it. So this schedule right now shows, looking at electrical, shows our different floors. These are actually all, if you look, there's one minus sign here and it's blank there. They're actually all on one line. So if I minimize that, it's just electric, ceiling, rough. It shows those activities all. Let me turn off this information. It's a little busy there, so we can't really see it. So all of those activities are on one line, but those activities all have their own logic to them. They can have their own calendars. They can have their own information. So I have found that to be pretty useful in that you can break up an activity as many ways as you want, but when you're printing out your schedule, they can still all show on one line. There can be gaps between them. They can be tied to various parts of the schedule on their own, but you don't have to then have a 100-page schedule with all of your detail.
Terrific. There's a question that speaks to kind of an upcoming feature, which leads me into the kind of the next portion here that I wanted to talk about, and I don't know that Megan's really set up to show this. There's a question about can you show a report with a comparison between actual work and an update, perhaps in a pie chart. So one of the exciting things that we're including in our next major release, which will be out this summer, is we're going to wrap functionality that we've included in some add-on modules into the software. And we're really excited about this because it provides lots and lots of different functionalities. Well, one of those speaks directly to this question, and that is that business intelligence, or the ability to either produce quick reports out of the standalone version or to push to a reporting database in SQL if you're using a server or enterprise version, that's going to be included as a part of the software. So there'll be the ability to spin out those reports right out of into Excel to create that pie chart that we're talking about, right out of your standalone version. You'll be able to set those up very easily. So, and that's coming out later this summer. And certainly those folks that purchase the software before our major releases are included with our regular maintenance contract that provides you all that phone support that you need. But it includes all the future versions of the software as well. So all those folks that purchase before that comes out, and we're targeting kind of midsummer right now. So as we're in spring, it's something to think about. It will include some project comparison tool sets, some risk tool sets, some network diagramming tools. So lots of additional functionality, none of which that we actually have time to jump into right now. But let me go ahead and pop over real quick to what we're looking for in the future. And as I said, there were a couple of questions that we didn't actually get a chance to get to. If by chance we did answer your question, but not completely, perhaps didn't interpret it correctly, shoot us an email. You'll all be getting a confirmation email, so feel free to reach out to it. But on the last slide, we'll give you some communication information as well. We've got another webinar coming up next month in May. We do our webinars monthly. As I mentioned, we also have partners across the country who are doing webinars as well. You can find Ask to Power project content on YouTube. So we are very open about all the functionality of the software. The only thing I'd caution you with YouTube, the challenge with YouTube is there's functionality about previous old versions. We're in version 13.04 right now of the software. So if you're looking at a version 12 YouTube video, that may not be quite as powerful as you'd like. So we add lots of functionality with each version. We do our webinars at the end of the month, the last Thursday, 9 a.m. Mountain Time, 11 a.m. Central. And so we'll have another one May 26th. So look for that content. We're just settling on what to include. If you have some feedback about things you'd like to see, let us know. We'll be doing an E&R webcast June 22nd. So look for that information as well. We'll be at a couple of different trade shows coming up very soon here in June. We've got the AACE up in Toronto. See lots of folks there. We'll then skip into the fall as the busy construction schedule is underway, and be down in a much warmer San Diego for CMAA. And then we have a BIM module that we did not show at all today. So for those of you that are creating that have 3D models, or they're sent to you and you'd like to add that fourth dimension time, we have a BIM module that you can add on. We'll be certainly showing that at the BIM forum, but we can always arrange a personal demonstration with any of our partners at any time. You can get more information at asktopowerproject.com. You can also find a local LECOsoft partner to help you out. My email address is at the bottom of the screen, and that's our toll-free number. You can certainly give that a call, and we'll be happy to direct you to the right person or help you with information. As a part of attending today's webinar, you'll be receiving an email with a link to download a trial copy of the software. That's good for 14 days. It's not a limited version, it's a full version. So feel free to take a look at that and give us a call, and so we can talk about how the software is priced, what functions you really need, and how we might be able to help you with all of that. So thanks for attending today. I really do appreciate your time. And for those of you that want to revisit it, we'll be sending you a link to the recording for today's webinar as well. Thanks from LECOsoft in Denver, Colorado. Bye now.